was like. What it was like if it was like. What's up, Joanne? How's it going? Nice to see you stopping by on the 420 TV. So I decided to start doing my newscasts again. I just need to pick a better time to maybe we could start building the channel once again up into the thousands and thousands. But I like my 180 whatever it is. So I'd like to thank all six of y'all for showing. Anyway, let's get on with the news. I'm on mute. Well, how about that? Well, we'll just start over then. How about that? We can just start all the way over. So, like, if you've watched it this far, we'll just start all the way over. It's a boo boo. You read it? Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Still no sound? It says that my thing is on. Maybe my mic got stuck on mute, but that's okay. We'll just start the whole freaking thing over again. So if you've been watching it up to this point, you just hit that rewind button or fast forward. I don't know, whichever one it is. All right. Anyway, back to, the news. Somebody suggested this article to me about the airships that might not have existed. But what really caught my eye about it's a pretty cool article and story. It's about a book that was found after a fire in Houston about a society of people that were flying around airships, or was it? Or was it just a mythological thing? It's a pretty trippy thing if you want to look into it. What I found interesting were some of the designs in it and the old layout of it. That's the trippy part. But we'll go back to like right here, or maybe even all the way back to the title of today here. It's The Rats of NIMH, the doomed mouse utopia that inspired it. Anyway, but we'll get back to this at the end. Let's go back to the beginning here because I think this article right here, this story, this experiment, um, has some big correlations with what's going on right now in today's society. What's up, James? Customer killed by SUV at Queens Car Wash. And the only reason I'm pointing this article out is because of the weird way that they wrote it. It says a 54-year-old woman was killed in a freak accident at a Queens car wash on Monday afternoon. If it was a freak accident, why are they charging the poor guy with a crime? But anyway, the cops arrested him. It says the woman was taken to the Jamaica hospital, but it was too late to save her life. Her name was not immediately released. The man who works at the car wash was taken into custody. Well, was it a freak accident or was it a negligent homicide? I don't know, but it's weird. Why would they call it a freak accident if someone did it? I don't know if it's the guy's fault or not. I'm just saying, why would you call it a freak accident? And then this weird thing, like I said, that some of the designs on here remind me of some of the German UFO drawings and stuff like that. And then some of it looks like just some ancient weird stuff. But I think this is one of these weird books that has a lot of things encoded in it. So I'm going to try to do a show on this error club that may or may not have ever existed. A lot of people have already wrote about it, and I was looking into different versions of it. But it seems to be pretty trippy. Like maybe it came from an alternate dimension, which some people believe that's behind that. But let's get back to our dimension. Our weird alternate dimension. Bill Gates, climate warrior and super emitter. You ever notice that anytime there's some kooky, crazy shit that probably shouldn't be going down, this guy's tied to it? The guy that made the computer software that you always needed protection with a virus software, because I think the whole thing is a virus. Like his entire Microsoft, which almost the entire world's computing is based on. And he's not a doctor, but somehow he's in charge of, who gets vaccinated, who don't get vaccinated. And, if you've ever heard him talk, he's a big fan of depopulation. But it's funny. Any kind of weird, kooky thing that's going on, you'll find this guy, Bill Gates, tied to it. But anyway, he's a super emitter. He's so much of a emitter that he wants to block out the sun and other crazy schemes. But right now, I think we're well into what we've been talking about for a long time, where each year from here on out, we may be having to deal with more and more extreme weather, and actual extreme weather. It hasn't really been all that extreme yet, but just imagine some of the places that are never been covered in snow. I don't mean never, because it's happened periodically, obviously in cycles, but people that aren't used to having snow all over them are now going to have to deal with kind of icy age conditions. And who knows what's going on with the magnetic reversal that's going on. It seems like we're well into some trippy stuff in this grand solar minimum. Let it snow. Jerusalem residents, get ready for a winter wonderland. And, this is pretty trippy because there's just article after article about that. And if you're in the U.S., well, unless you're in Florida, you're probably freezing your ass off while the rest of the country freezes. Florida's sunny beaches overflow with crowds. And look at that kid. Is this... What happened to the pandemic there? They're not wearing their masks. Jesus. Wearing little to no mask, barely keeping recommended 6 feet distance. Visitors lugging suitcases and bags that displayed hotel cards. They just flooded the whole thing. Everybody's taking a break right now. I'm kind of jelly. I'd like to be there too on the beaches. That's nice. I wish I had the money to drive there, but I don't. I live where it's snowing, man. But the sun's out, so it's not snowing anymore. It's all going to melt, and it'll be like it never happened in a few days. You guys are freezing from Texas over there in Huntsville, huh? Customers without power now may not get it back until tomorrow. The funny thing about this is if you've been paying attention, they were going to turn off the power anyway. They were already going to have a scheduled shutdown, and then it just lasted longer. And what's so funny is that they're trying to, blame wind turbines and things like that. 2 people dead in Texas as sub-freezing cold sweeps U.S., which is so fucked up. I mean, that people died, but I saw a thing on mainstream news where they were saying we're going to have to get refrigeration trucks because there's so many bodies because of the cold. Now, I just want you to think about that for a minute. If it's so damn cold, just turn off the heat at the morgue, and I think you'll be fine. But they want to make it really dramatic because of climate change, man. It's the climate that's changing. Remember, they told you it's going to get hot. The globe is going to get hot. And now they're telling you, well, the cold, getting really cold is, that's global warming. That's climate change too. Bread lines. Unprepared Texans line up outside grocery store amid winter storm because they didn't have enough food at their house. And what are we always talking about? About prepping. You should have food, at least for a couple weeks, or, emergency food. God forbid. What if this was a permanent thing that just happened? What if everywhere just became cold and the growing season didn't even come back for several years? What if a big volcano just blew up, a super big explosion, and threw a bunch of shit up in the atmosphere, and there was like a real dark winter? Not just dark winter because they turned off the power on you, but dark winter because there ain't no more power. But that's okay. You're going to eat this 100% synthetic beef, says Bill Gates. Again, this guy with the kooky fucking ideas, right? But think about this. We're getting into the sci-fi realm of Soylent Green here. We'll just, make some blood sausage and grow some lab-grown meat, and you can have that because we don't want to have a bunch of cattle feeding people, sustaining people on their own manpower and on their own farm power. And right now, in case you guys don't know, I was watching this thing about Europe and how they're reintroducing bison and wolves and all kinds of weird, shall we say, kind of ice agey creatures that have disappeared over time in Europe, and dwindled in numbers in the Americas. And they're doing this all over the place. It's because they're planning on a massive people depopulation, because our population is about to plateau, along with some other really interesting things that are starting to happen, like limiting your food, limiting your travel, making you wear all those masks and stuff. Palestinians accuse Israel of blocking vaccines to Gaza. That might be the best thing that Israel's done for the Palestinians in God knows how long. I'm just saying. I don't know. Check this out. New skin patch. This is going to fix you right up. This is pretty much the concept of a passport right here. I mean, maybe not this particular one, but this is really kind of what they want to push you into, where you're going to have one of these on your wrists, on your neck, on your forehead, wherever the fuck they put it. I'm just saying. Right? So you're going to have one of these, and it'll take a good care of records for you. Where you been? Did you get your shots? All your whole medical, history. So if you're a smoker or a drinker, you'll know that you've been, getting your ID scanned at the store to get that shit. And unless you got an old school store and you know the people and they just give it to you, there's a big file being stored on you about your health and your behavior. So if you're a Twinkies eater, those Super Savers cards at every one of the damn stores, those things just keep track of you and what you buy. Your phone keeps track of where you go and what you buy. But then we'll just put all this information in a handy dandy little skin patch. And this will tell everybody whether or not you can go into a government building, whether or not you can get on an airplane, whether or not you can get on a bus, whether you can rent a car, whether you can go in a restaurant. I shit you not, that is where we're going. Where every single life form on Earth is going to have a similar patch, tattoo, or chip to keep track of them. Because life is going to be a dwindling resource, and they want to control that. Some of his followers are being sought by the FBI. It's not to stopping the leader of the Oath Keepers. Now, I'm pointing this out because we live in an Orwellian time where, I'm sure the saying, when the government fears its people, you have freedom. And whenever the people fear the government, you have tyranny. Well, I'll say maybe they didn't think about that saying too much, because right now it's pretty obvious that the government fears the people, and yet it's a tyranny right now. I mean, think about the idea that we've been going along all this time, and they've never needed a big wall around the government to protect them from us lowly citizens. Never. But they really are trying to propagandize that just every single person that likes America, the flag, the Constitution, all of it, you're a bad person and you're a terrorist. And we're going to hammer this idea into you at the same time as telling you how you're going to walk around, where you're going to go, and how you're going to breathe. Think about that. We're at a time where even breathing is on the table to discuss if authoritarians can tell you when and where and how. Wearing 2 masks required to enter some federal courthouses. What I tell you last time I was on here, they're going to start this crap where everywhere is got these ridiculous hoops to jump through. And if you don't conform to what they want and do what they say so, you're not even going to get to go in a federal building. You're not going to get to go into a local courthouse. And actually right now, all over the U.S., the local court or the local government offices are all closed because of COVID. And then you're going to have to wear your 2 masks and come when the government gives you your number. So then you'll know when to come. I mean, come on. You got to do what they say. I mean, think about it. Why do they have a fence around D.C.? And now they're expanding the time that they want to push it out. Do you think that these National Guardsmen really want to be there? Do you think that they believe in the bullshit that they're pushing right now, that the entire country is just so racist that we got to, we got to kick a bunch of people out? What they're really doing is kicking everybody that's not loyal to the actual government that runs the U.S. And we all know that it's not the United States government, and that our little politicians and representatives, presidents, congressmen, senators, judges, etc., they don't run shit. The Federal Reserve Bank runs everything. They run the IRS. And not only that, they have little private meetings where they write up a bunch of big bills and then they just send it over to DC. And guess what they do? They sign it. They vote for it. All kinds of bills. Stuff that 85% of the population doesn't want, they will still push it through. Meaning that they don't represent you, and they never have. But they want you to believe that we need to be in a constant state of fear of our fellow citizens. And we also want people to believe that they no longer have natural rights, or the right to protect themselves, or the right to have freedom of speech, or any of these ideas that our nation was founded on are all just evaporating away in a mass hysteria of calling people Nazis and racists, when it's lost on most of the morons that follow this propaganda that this is the country that beat the assholes called the Socialist Workers' Party of Germany there, the Nazi. So they run around with these little socialist flags and communist flags, not realizing that, it was their parents and grandparents and great-grandparents that are the ones that kept, at least to the world, the concept of those things being here. But no longer. We're going to do a new thing now over here. And this is kind of typical of the stuff that they're pushing as if it's just an everyday thing. Woman killed in dispute over a political sign. One Washington state woman is dead and another faces murder charges in an incident involving a political sign. Let me guess. Somebody had a Trump sign. Somebody wanted to take it off. Somebody breached their private property and then got shot. Because I'm just guessing. I ain't even read this. Let's see. It happened in Mount Vernon, Washington on Saturday night. A Skagit County Sheriff's Office was called to a home in Big Lake Road about 5:25 p.m. for a report of a fight. A second call came in a few minutes later with a man reporting that his friend had been shot. Deputies found 32-year-old woman dead in the driveway. I mean, what part of private property do people not understand? Well, I'll tell you. It's communists and socialists. They don't believe in private property. If they had it their way, they would just come and take your shit. And they might. But anyway, there was a woman dead in the driveway when they arrived at home. The couple that lives there came out and spoke to the deputies, according to the news release. Investigators say the victim and the shooter didn't know each other, but they had determined that the incident began over the theft of a political sign. We're not going to say what it is, are we? Okay. Police did not release the information about the sign, but other residents reacting to the crime on local message boards say the woman had a Trump sign in the yard and the victim tried to take it. So not only do you have people completely insane fighting over two cults that don't represent them, but they're willing to breach private property and kill each other over this idea. This tells you that people have lost their ever-loving mind. Minneapolis spending millions to hire more police amid crime surge and officer shortage because they've been trying to cancel the whole idea of a unified nation with any kind of law enforcement. The only kind of law enforcement they want is the overbearing super police state type that don't believe you have any constitutional rights. And believe me, it's not just the military that's getting purged, it's the police. Soon there will only be police and military still employed by the so-called government that are only, they're basically just mercenaries that will do whatever their higher-ups tell them. And if the higher-ups tell them, we're doing the world government thing now, they will do it. And the reason they will do it is because they're promised a pension, they're promised money, they're promised to be part of the cult. The propaganda never ceases to stop. I don't trust people above me, riot squad cop opened up about the disastrous response to the Capitol insurrection. And they're still comparing 4 years of people trying to burn down cities, destroying shops, private property, murdering shop owners, police officers, etc. They are still trying to compare that with some people that walked into the Capitol with flags, cell phones, and even most of them were so brainwashed, law-abiding citizens, they even stayed between the velvet ropes. Now, it's obvious there were some people that were causing trouble, but it's really funny when you get into this article. It starts to talk about right-wing extremists, and it lists lefty groups like the Boogaloo Boys as right-wing extremists. So what they're doing now is they're the people they use to stage some of these assaults on the public is what I call it. Now they're saying that they're all right wing when they were obviously left wing and right wing groups at this event, and they were going nuts and doing some dumb stuff. But the people that he shouldn't trust that are above him, I hate to say it, are the people that are writing their checks. Because those people are willing to sell this group of people out at any second. They don't care. They're just scared of the public. They're scared of the public. Why? Why would honest politicians even be scared of the public? Maybe it's because they know that they've done a lot of crimes. And if people actually started paying attention, they would realize that they no longer represent them and that they pass bills that people don't agree with and they don't read them and they don't write them because the Federal Reserve Bank is doing that for them. Plummeting cases in the U.S. show a pathway of crushing COVID-19. In other words, they're ready to move on to the next fear-mongering thing, but they're not going to let it go quite yet. They've already trained you to wear the mask. They've trained you to live the new life. And just like I predicted right here, Brits may have to show a COVID vaccine passport just to go to a pub or a restaurant. That's right. You ain't going to be able to hide anywhere in the public where the authoritarian government is not going to tell you how you're going to exist. When? The nightmare is here. I mean, it's obvious. Even down in Mexico, with kidnaps always happening, kidnap capital Mexico eyes biometric phone registry spiking privacy fears. They already do this. If people in Mexico have a smartphone, they're getting spied on just like Americans. This is just outright and open. And they're not the only ones, believe me. I mean, think about what your phone is. It has a retinal display. It looks like your eyeball. It recognizes your face. You put your fingers on it. You give it constant updated information that reaffirms and confirms that you are where you're at. So your voice, your biometrics, all of that stuff is being tracked on that phone, and it gives the grid, the controllers, an exact idea of what the populace does, what they like, what they don't like, where they go, how many times they go take a shit all day. Believe me, it's micromanaged all the way to the little minuscule things that you do in your life. That's why they want to put smart this, smart that, and smart everything in your home, so that there's not a corner or an aspect of human life that they don't have written down, backed up, filed, and spied upon. New U.S. law would require DHS to start scanning every vehicle at the border. My question is why the fuck don't they do that already? Considering these are probably the only people that they're legally allowed to fucking find out who they are. As far as I know, U.S. citizens are supposed to have the Fourth Amendment to be secure in their person, their papers, and, especially their day-to-day life without being stopped and checked, even though you volunteer all of that, like I said, with your phone and your tablet and all your other smart devices. However, they're not supposed to have that power. But when you're not a U.S. citizen, these guys are claiming to be protecting us, to know what's going on, to know who's coming in. So if they're going to be claiming to do that and receiving funds taken from us from taxes, maybe they should actually fucking do that. Maybe they should have been doing that, and maybe they already have been without sharing that information with you or the citizens or using the technology to benefit you in any way. But believe me, I've been by a lot of border checks, and I don't see why they wouldn't have, different stuff than these Department of Homeland Security people having at the border in U.S. Customs. Because every time you go through a border check here, you can see there's a big giant array of different cameras. They have facial scanners. They have regular cameras. There's an infrared camera. There's a plate reader. So it's so funny and ironic when you pull up there and they ask you if you're a citizen. It's funny because they know who you are. They know your address. They know exactly who you are. So it's just funny that we pretend like we're not in a technologically advanced prison. Former Detroit TV anchor Karen Hudson Samuels dies one day after taking COVID vaccine. I'm sure that had nothing to do with the vaccine. Go on about your lives. Bitcoin surpasses $50,000 for its first time as a major companies jump into crypto. Now, I'm telling you, there's still a little golden era probably on this. The banks are going to start, being the best friend of Bitcoin soon. And this may even go up in number right here. But then once the government and the banks get their hands in it, it's going to crash. I'm telling you. This is going to be another big theft of the public. And I don't know how. I just have a feeling that Bitcoin is going to do good here for the next couple years. The banks are going to make a lot of money on it, and then everybody's going to get fucked. That's just my, premonition, my, prophecy. Just kidding. I don't really know because, I can't even afford a $50,000 piece of currency in the first fucking place. But it doesn't matter because you may be forced into using the cryptocurrency whether you like it or not. Because as I've been saying probably for 4 years, we're going to a cashless society. UK ATMs use plummets during pandemic. But that's okay because we're all going to have that neck tattoo, that neck chip that'll just have your money on it, and they can just scan you. When you go into a store, you can just grab stuff. You can get you a little sandwich. You can get you a GMO apple, and you can go to the register, and after it's done scanning your biometrics, it'll scan the little thing on your neck, and they'll be like, oh no, you made a bad comment on Twitter last night. I'm sorry, your apple cost more than someone else's apple, but that's okay. We'll just charge you from the chip on your neck there. FEMA opens mass vaccine sites as bad weathers hamper their efforts. Their effects. FEMA opened its first COVID-19 max vaccination site Tuesday, something people told me I was a conspiracy theorist. You're a conspiracy theorist. They ain't going to do that. The government ain't going to try to force vaccinate everybody. Well, they're not force vaccinating anybody yet. However, this is just the first step in what's obviously a move to go in that direction. So first we just stop it. Then we start harassing you about it. Then we start browbeating you. We fuck with your credit score. We fuck with your money. We fuck with your livelihood. We shut down your business. We make your kids where they can't go to school anymore. And then we're going to swab your butt, swab your nose. Talk about a nanny state, wiping our nose and our ass, literally. But now on the side of the road, you're going to have people in uniform that probably shouldn't be doing that. Maybe they should, I don't know, be down by the border. I don't know, going to rescue people at some natural disaster. Maybe they should be defending our country. But no, we're going to stop you on the side of the road, once again, like I said, without the right, taking your right to free travel away because you got stuck in this bullshit in the first place, and then browbeat you into taking a fucking vaccine you may or may not want. How about this? If you want a vaccine, you should be able to call your doctor in a capitalist society and compare the different vaccines and read about them and then decide maybe which one you do or don't want. I'm just saying. But this can easily turn into where you get stuck on the road and they're telling you, no, sir, no, ma'am, there's no choice. You have to take it. Mandated executive order, blah, 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 blah. You will take the shot or you're not going to come. And if you don't take the shot, they'll do like the DWIs in Texas where they just strap you to a fucking table and then take your blood and give you a shot any fucking way. How about that? Oh, I'm sorry. Did I talk bad? You know, this is why I get banned, because I just talk. I'm sorry. Israel to ease more COVID curbs. Launch leisure green pass. So you could be an elite. All you have to do is get your vaccine and wear your mask. All of your masks. Wear them and you will be let into the finest clubs, the best restaurants, movie premieres. It'll be wonderful. May the Hunger Games start. Oh, wait. Is this starting to look familiar? Where they're making a caste system of basically, in the past, we've had caste systems based on race, based on how much money, based on lineage of royalty, based on all these other stupid fucking ideas. And now we're going to have a caste society on who can lick the government's booty hole and boots the best. If you can do that the best, you will have the finest things in your short life before you get cancer about 60 or 65 or whenever they're done with you. Israel to ease more COVID curbs. Don't worry about it. And this is what they want you to have your children in, right here.
All right, Mr. Richardson, I just have a question.
And just another brick in the wall. Wasn't that the saying, hey teacher, leave those kids alone? So maybe it's good that your kids are staying home because of COVID, because if you go down there, on top of years of treating your children like prisoners, giving them crappy food, making them subject to the police state, teaching them false sciences and histories, now we're going to put them in a plexiglass fucking bubble and go around and fuck with them about wearing masks until they know. And they're not confused that they are a rat in a prison. Because that's what they are, that's what you are, and that's what we all are. Because they want us to stay home. They want us not to work. They want us not to create. They want us not to be free. And soon they're going to be knocking on your doorstep, not unlike Sodom and Gomorrah, asking for your children so that they could sodomize them with a needle in their arm with all kinds of shit that someone else created in a lab. And you're just supposed to take their word for it, that they have your good intentions at mind. I don't know. But don't worry about it because, you know, the history of vaccines is settled and they're good for you. They're safe and effective. You need to take them. You need to take them now. Matter of fact, I think you could get a discount at one of the stores, you know, like probably Walmart or Walgreens or CVS. I'm sure that, you know, you can get a like 5% discount on your GMO snacks if you act now. Now, say, you know, you might question people that have conspiracy theories. I'm not saying I'm one of those, but some people that have conspiracy theories about an upcoming change in planetary situation and the possible die-off of massive amounts of populations around the world, maybe due to cold or hot or hungry, or maybe the electricity wasn't on and they couldn't, chill their diabetic medicine, and then the supply chain stopped. Don't worry about that, because we are planning for a world where we don't even need those people. And the people that are left, don't worry about it. We'll just send the drone to your house and deliver shit. And then you really don't have to leave your prison block. You won't have to go to the next town. You won't have to go to a new neighborhood. You will never, ever again have friends, neighbors, or get-togethers where people get together and, form cultures and bonds in the community. No, 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 no. Family's bad, but if you think that's bad, community. Now there's a real bad thing. You can't have community, not real community. Otherwise, you get the hammer and the sickle. Look, there's somebody naked in there. What's up, Matilda? Anyway, I kind of have a theory about when we're going into this grand solar minimum. The reason that the tech is being kind of, let out and everybody's getting to play with this new drone tech is because in the near future, they're only going to be sending robots in between cities and to places that you are not allowed to go. So there'll be complete areas cut off, put back to nature, not unlike what they say on the Georgia Guidestones that are given only to nature. And if you live back there, they're going to remove you from it. And the only thing that'll be going back and forth in there are drones. And it wouldn't be that far-fetched that because you're not supposed to be in these no-go zones, that they might arm said drones. Just saying. Hey, look, China topples the U.S. as EU's top trade partner over 2020. Well, we all kind of knew that because they turned America off. It was closed for business. And if you remember, I had a video called Mr. Corona. I think I'll load it again after this show, in which I predicted right in there using the movie America Closed. America's closed for business. It wasn't, but now it is. And you can get used to other nations deciding what you do in your local area more and more as time goes by. Because in fact, we're in a one world government. Now let's skip over to a different subject right here. Claim for a giant Planet 9 at solar system's edge takes a hit. So basically they're saying that none of the scientists can agree on these giant planets that may or may not be orbiting the Earth. They've so much as just admitted to it, I don't know how many times, about there being large planets of, like maybe the Nibiru size, if some of you guys want to call it that, or Marduk size, 10 times the Earth-sized planet or 5 times the Earth-sized planet, whatever the case may be. But not just that there's one, but there's several out there. Other planets out there, but you never hear about them. And it makes you wonder, why not? I don't know. But now they're trying to say, don't worry about it. There is no Nibiru. It's probably just, we're looking at it wrong. That's all it is. Planet 9 supporters aren't backing down, though. One skeptic not involved in the new work says she's very unhappy to see it. And what is that work? It's a claim that looks at increasingly shaky after a team of astronomers reported last week that the orbits of a handful of distant lumps of rock are not bunched together by gravity of Planet 9, as its proponents believe, but it seems clustered because that's where the telescope happened to be looking. So in other words, what they're saying is that there's probably not a planet out there because you just found some gravity effects just because you just happen to look out there with, in the right spot. So don't worry about any of those other, things that affect the planets. My question is if the magnetics of the solar system change. I'm not sure exactly how interconnected gravity is with electromagnetism, but you would think that it is to a large degree, considering it seems like those are basic fundamentals of the entire universe, that things attract, not only from, electrical attraction, but from mass. So what happens whenever the electromagnetism all of a sudden changes here? will we start seeing weird evolutions on Earth? Or maybe the reason that we're not allowed to go to the Antarctic is because the question that everybody doesn't want us to know, it seems like since ancient times, is that there's a exact cyclical nature to catastrophic events on the earth, and every time it does, the elites, the right to rule families, they get to control the information. And at those times, what they do is they go around the earth and destroy that information. And every time that they do this, they start over with their own story about what happened. And whenever human beings go out and start learning the sciences and the mysteries of different things, mathematics, sciences, they start exploring and they start looking for themselves. And there may be a reason that it wasn't until just recently that they started letting us know about bizarre life forms that exist in these Antarctic lakes, because some of them seem to be almost extraterrestrial. But I think really the reason is because in these lakes are evidence of this cyclical catastrophic nature of the earth, and it probably has some species in there that tell a big story. And one of those stories might be that, there's been several evolutions of life on the planet. And it might even prove that it wasn't millions of years ago that it was not covered in ice. It may have been only thousands of years ago. Maybe tens of thousands. Maybe, depending on the last cycle of catastrophic shit, probably about 17,000 years ago, I think. That's my opinion. But a lot of people think it's between 12 and 13,000 years ago. All kinds of bad shit happened on the earth. And the number of humans dwindled down and dwindled. But then we came back. We always survive. And that's because there are things underground that we seem to keep going to. And recently I've been seeing a lot of maps of where the supposed underground caves are, both government and natural caves, and they just so happen to line up with all the places where pictographs, petroglyphs, or geoglyphs are in North America. And I don't think that that's also, too far-fetched to wonder why the same map, if you overlaid it, you would find stories of giants. You would find Clovis Man and Folsom Man, all near these underground sites. It's because they probably knew, and they probably kept leaving layers of information behind. And there's a lot of evidence showing that the grand kind of the club or the Brotherhood of Masons is so old in history that in fact all the Native Americans continued to use their symbols and pass down some of their knowledge. And I actually have been finding proof of an ancient symbol that may be the first symbol. And I'm going to make a show about that. But right now, let's talk about life changes on the planet. This is maybe why they hide and won't let nobody go to Antarctica, is because there is stuff there that is so bizarre that it would flip the lid on all their supposed theories, like, how long it's been covered in ice, the out of Africa theory. All kinds of things get messed up when people start finding artifacts, life forms, and evidence of stuff in the geology that they can't hide anymore. So it seems like we're in a reset time where they're trying to get rid of knowledge, but at the same time, they're okay with some stuff slipping through now because they're about to start telling us a new story of aliens, that we got to be scared of. And they're going to start showing, look, we found this, we found that. And they're going to slowly spoon feed you this idea. And indeed, they have been already. If you've been a follower of the information of Mars, you'll know that they slow dripped the idea of liquid water on there for years. And now it's pretty much given, even by mainstream science, that there's lots of liquid water. And at different times, solid water becomes liquid water. So the ice melts and all kinds of stuff, which gives it possibilities like this: underground lakes, under poles, under the surface, and some of these icy moons of Jupiter and Saturn may be filled with all kinds of life. Or maybe they're not. Maybe they're just trying to pull the wool over your eyes. I don't know. But Mars rover landing, NASA readies for 7 minutes of terror with Perseverance this week. And they're supposed to put this well, where'd it go? There it is. This little drone helicopter, just like the ones that they're saying is going to deliver all your products to your house. But it's going to fly. And I've been asking for a long time, why didn't they do this 40 years ago? Because I know we had the technology to do it that long ago. We could have landed one of these things on there. And right now, they're going to send back some crap that looks really fucked up and it's not very detailed and it's just going to show you a bunch of this or that while they spoon feed you information. And I'm sure it's going to drive a bunch of drone drivers nuts because they know they could fly it up altitude and go actually look around and do stuff and look at stuff, but you're not going to get none of that good thing. I'm predicting they're going to show you some basic crap and it's not going to be impressive when right here in my office I have a 4K computerized drone with the intelligent I guess accessory. The software is like an AI that helps you fly it. So you don't have to manually even fly it. And I know there's all kinds of programs, and these guys are supposedly have access to even better stuff than that. But yet they're going to come back with some bogus kind of old technology looking pictures and video if they let us look at the real stuff at all. And if you ever notice, they're always involved with JPL and they always give you computer renderings instead of the real thing because they like to milk information. But I predict they are going to try to convince you they're the aliens. Now, I think it's ironic here, and this is what I was talking about earlier, that they had a planned power outage already in Texas. They were going to turn off the grid for a while. But then you also got this: nearly half of Texas installed wind power generation capacity has been offline because of frozen wind turbines in West Texas. And isn't it funny that when we did the MIAC episode, David Dubine was talking about this over in Europe? It was almost like the same headlines were headed here, but why doesn't that happen all the time? And obviously, if that happens, then the whole technology sucks. Because what if we did go into a miniature ice age? None of that technology would help anybody. It wouldn't make electricity. And matter of fact, it doesn't really make that much electricity compared to how much coal and fossil fuels it takes to run the goddamn things. Not to mention, they always break and then they fill them in the earth and they fuck up the environment. It's a lose-lose situation with these wind turbines, but yet they're going to tell you that's why you don't have power and it's your fault for farting out CO2 all the time, feeding the plants, and you made the planet fucked up because it's your fault because of CO2. And, you need to know that. But I always wonder, speaking of farting out CO2, this is what I was talking about. This article right here is from the New York Times circa 1902. And I wanted you guys to trip on this because this is the kind of stuff that, get out of here. This is the kind of stuff that just disappears. Here we go. Giant skeleton found. Archaeologists to send expedition to explore graveyards in New Mexico where bodies were unearthed. And this isn't too far from where I live right here. And it's possible that different types of humans were going to the same places every time a catastrophe happens. And I mean for a long time. Tens of thousands of years, I think it's possible. Let's see here. Los Angeles, California, February 10th, owing to the discovery of remains of a race of giants in Guadalupe, New Mexico, antiquarians and archaeologists are preparing an expedition further to explore that region. This determination is based on excitement that exists among the people of the scope of the county near Mesa, which is not too far from the petroglyphs. I wish I'd stop doing that. Anyway, it's not too far from the petroglyphs that have polydactyl hands and giant hands and crooked feet and all kinds of weird stuff, as maybe if you've watched my channel, you've seen before. So the whole thing is pretty tripped out here. It says Luciana Quintana, on whose ranch the ancient burial plot is located, discovered 2 stones that bore curious inscriptions. Now we're talking maybe pictographs or possibly actual letters. And beneath there was found a shallow excavation of bones of a frame that could not have been less than 12 feet in length. We're talking about a 12-foot human being, if they weren't making it up. Now, these kinds of, you can find these articles in every state around this time when people were making roads and moving mounds and all kinds of stuff. It's really trippy. So, no less than 12 feet in length, the men who opened the grave say that the forearm was 4 feet long and that in a well preserved jaw and lower teeth ranged from the size of a hickory nut, which is pretty big for a tooth, to that of the largest walnut in size. That means this thing had a big head and big teeth. The chest of the being is reported to having a circumference of 7 feet. Now, I kind of find that hard to believe right there. However, they may have meant 7 feet because it was a flattened out skeleton and it was spread out. I don't know. Kitana, who has uncovered many other burial places, expresses the opinion that the perhaps thousands of skeletons of a race of giants long extinct will be found. This supposition is based on the traditions handed down from the early Spanish invasion that have detailed knowledge of the existence of a race of giants that inhabited the plains of what we now call eastern New Mexico. Indian legends and carvings also in the same, I'm not sure what that, I think it says section, indicate existence of such a race. And I've shown them. They do. There is big hands and big feet on the thing. And not only that, pictures of cyclopses and robots, alien looking stuff, pictures of Pratt instabilities, pictures of God knows what else. And I have a theory, some of the ancientest symbols are on the rocks over there, indicating that Native Americans not only had knowledge of Egyptian stuff or pre-Egyptian stuff, but they might have even had knowledge of the oldest civilization on Earth. During a CNN interview, switching subjects, I thought it was just funny, this guy, because, we all know he's kind of...
I don't think I have the authority to do it by son of a pen.
You have, over the years, over your career, you've already really spent a great deal of time at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, except now you're living there and you're president. It's been 4 weeks. What's it like? How's it different?
I get up in the morning and look at Jill and say, where the hell are we? No, it's, look, it's, I've only been president 4 weeks. And sometimes, because things are moving so fast, not because of burden, it feels like 4 years. It's not because of the burden. It's because there's so much happening that you're constantly focusing on one problem or opportunity, one right ad seriatim. But what happens is that it's, what I didn't realize, I had been in the Oval Office 100 times as vice president, or more than that, every morning for the initial meetings, but I had never been up in the residence. And one of the things that I don't know.
Now, I just thought that was funny, but do you really believe this putz runs anything? Or am I right by saying that there is really no United States government? There's a union of the Federal Reserve Bank is what there has been since the 1800s. And I would say that they came public in 1913, and we all know about Jekyll Island. They had a meeting in 1910 and kind of disappeared, for 3 years. And then all of a sudden you get the Federal Reserve Act, which turns the power. And, that private Federal Reserve Bank has it fixed where only they can loan to the United States. So we can never choose to go to another bank. You know how, like, if you have a banking account and you find out that they're feeing you and robbing you and, they're always messing up your statements, you can go, you know what? I want to transfer my money to another bank. Well, you can't do that in the United States because they have it fixed where there's only one bank that will continue to give you interest debt on the paper bills that they give you, but they are the ones that write the bills. They meet up every year and they decide what we're doing, not the other way around. So it makes you wonder whenever you have changes in stuff like this, as you recall probably Las Vegas, if you know what I'm talking about, then you'll know some stuff went down then that has to do with this. So now we're going to recalibrate ties with the Saudi Crown Prince. What does that mean? That means that we're going to make different allies and we're about to have some more war. That's what that means. The world will pay more for meat as food inflation deepens. Yeah, like I said, they're about to starve you out, and only the good boys and good little girls who follow the mask mandates, vaccines, and other things will have first dibs on the supply of supposed shortages of food like meat. It's all going up. All the food prices are going to go up. I hope you have food, and I hope you pay your taxes. Even at some point, I think that won't even matter anyway, because if the government wants your property, they're just going to take it. And if the government decides they're a new form of government, it's more likely they'll come and take it. But while controversial calls to defund the police have grabbed headlines, we urgently need to examine how we fund the police today. An increasing use of excessive fees, fines, and surcharges to fund part of our criminal justice system is creating punitive debt traps for millions of low-income Americans. Leaving prison, it's not just them. It's not just people getting out of prisons that have a bunch of debt. It's the regular people now. Like I've been saying, you now live in your own little prison, and they're going to tell you when yard is, when you can go outside, and you can send your kids to the little plexiglass box school, and they can wear their double masks, and they can't use words that are in the language they speak, and they can't salute the flag of the country they supposedly live in, and they're not allowed to learn about the rights that are guaranteed in the country, but we'll just don't worry about it. If a few days of cold weather, though, can cause such a very serious emergency, which I say was partially planned because they turned off the electricity and then it just stayed off longer. But if all of that could just happen, we've seen time after time, hurricanes, tornadoes, earthquakes, floods, etc., yada, yada. Something is going to fucking happen. But what if some things start happening on a regular basis? And what if the government is designed now not to help you, but to set up situations in which you fail, in which they are the only person or entity that you can depend on? You know, with your universal basic income and your food stamps, as long as you're a good boy and girl and follow their edicts, you'll still be able to eat out. You'll still be able to go to the club and dance with the honeys and get a drink, but only if you comply. What would a severe long-term crisis look like in this country despite all of our advanced technology? Record cold temperatures have brought much of the U.S. to its knees. There have been an epic failure of power grid in Texas. Was it? Countless pipes that were not designed to handle so much temperature have burst, and millions are without power and have no way to heat their homes right now. In fact, we are being told that 4.5 million people in Texas alone are without power. Now, think about this for a second. Over in the government, they're pretending to debate whether or not to give you some more of your own money. And they're going to call this another stimulus package. Who are they stimulating? Well, they're stimulating the billionaire stores. Think about that for just a second. They give you a little bit of your own hard-earned money, while most Americans are not allowed to go to work or their business has shut down, and we're no longer producing any real goods that could be used for monetary, and we have no real manufacturing set up for the people so they could just start making their own stuff. And what there is now being taken over by robots and megacorps. So if the power goes out for the peasants, what do? Well, they show up at food lines like they are in Texas, tripping out because they didn't plan ahead. You should be able to outlive or sustain yourself even in a multi-year winter. Talk about a dark winter. What if you had a dark winter? Now, it brings me back to where I started here, the beginning of the program, the Doom Mouse utopia that inspired the rats of NIMH. Now, this is a really trippy experiment. And I say to you that we are at this point right now as a civilization, or at least as a country, that we're at the point of the end of this rat experiment here. On July 9th, 1968, 8 white mice were placed into a strange box. The strange box. The box was their universe. This is where they lived. So trip this. Where was I? Oh yeah, right there. They were put in the box, man. All right. It was more like it was like a big room known as universe 25, about the size of a small storage unit. The mice themselves were bright and healthy, handpicked from the Institute's breeding stock. They were given the run of the place, which had everything in it that it might need: food, water, climate control, hundreds of nesting boxes to choose from, and a lush floor of shredded paper, ground corncob, etc. This is a far cry from wildlife outside, running from cats and traps, no long winters, no hunger, no starvation. It's even better than your average lab mouses, which, constantly get interrupted in their life by people poking syringes, scalpels at them. The residents of Universe 25 were mostly left alone, save for one man who would peer at them from above at this team of similarly interested assistants. They might have thought that they were the luckiest mice in the world, that they couldn't have known the truth, that in a few years, they and all their descendants would be dead. Dead as a doornail. And why is it that they all ended up dead? Well, let's listen to the rest of this experiment. The man who played Mouse God and came up with the doomed universe was named John Bumpus Calhoun. An Edmund Ramsden and John Adams detail in a paper, Escaping the Laboratory, the rodent experiments of John B. Calhoun and their cultural influence. Calhoun spent his childhood trapezing around Tennessee, chasing toads, collecting turtles, and banding birds. These adventures eventually led him to a doctorate in biology and a job in Baltimore, where he was tasked with the studying habits of Norway rats, one of the city's chief pests. In 1947, to keep a close eye on his charges, Calhoun constructed a quarter-acre rat city behind his house and filled it with breeding pairs. He expected to be able to house 5,000 rats there, but over the 2 years, he observed the city's population never exceeded 150. At that point, the rats became too stressed to reproduce. They started acting weirdly, rolling dirt into balls rather than digging normal tunnels. They hissed and they fought. This fascinated Calhoun. If the rats had everything they needed, what was keeping them from overrunning his little city just as they had done all over Baltimore? Intrigued, Calhoun built another, slightly bigger rat metropolis, this time in a barn, with ramps connecting several different rooms. Then he built another and another, hoping between patrons that this supported his research and framing his work in terms of population. How many individuals could a rodent city hold without losing its collective mind? By 1954, he was working under the auspice of the National Institute of Mental Health, which gave him whole rooms to build his rodent-topias. Some of these featured rats, while others focused on mice instead. Like a rodent's real estate developer, he incorporated ever better amenities, climbable walls, food hoppers that could serve 24 customers at once, lodging. He described as a walk-up and room apartments. Video records of his experiments show Calhoun was pleased, a smile and a pipe in his mouth, color-coded mice scurrying over his boots. Still, at a certain point, each of these paradises collapsed. There could be no escape from the behavioral consequences of rising population density. Calhoun wrote in an early paper, even Universe 25, the biggest, best mousetopia of all, built after a quarter century of research, failed to break this pattern. In late October, the first litter of mouse pups was born. After that, the population doubled every 2 months, 20 mice, then 40, then 80. The babies grew up and had babies of their own. Families became dynasties, carving out and holding down the best in-cage real estate. By August of 1969, the population numbered 620. Then, as always, things took a turn. Such rapid growth put too much pressure, evidently, on the mouse's way of life, the mouse way of life. As new generations reached adulthood, many couldn't find mates or places in the social order, the mouse equivalent of a spouse and job. Spinster females retreated to high-up nesting boxes where they lived alone, far from the family neighborhoods. Washed-up males gathered in the center of the universe, near the food, where they fretted, languished, and attacked each other. Meanwhile, overextended mouse moms and dads began moving their nests constantly to avoid their unsavory neighbors. They also took to the streets They also took their stress out on their babies, killing them out of the nest too early or even leaving them during moves. Now, why did I bring this up, this story of the nymphs? And if you don't know why I brought that up and it doesn't sound familiar to you at this point in time, well, you really haven't been paying attention to what the fuck's going on. Because we are those mice in that ratopia right now, and they are giving us rules, and they're cramming us together, and they don't want you to grow your own food, and they don't want you to have your own ideas, and they don't want you to speak the way you want to speak. And, ideas, they say, are bulletproof. But what if all the ideas get taken away in a big reset and the whole civilization goes down the shitter? Not so much because we didn't have the resources necessary, like the rats. They had plenty of resources and could have lived a long and healthy life. Matter of fact, more of them could have lived in there. But for some reason, the space available reached a certain number and it made the mice go insane and start behaving, well, like humans, basically. If you notice there, they were having the same problems as we are as society. Groups of young people running around, no longer wanting to mate. And even if they did, they may be infertile. But every time in there, they ran these rat experiments, and the same thing happened at the end. Infertile females and males that no longer produced. Just simply by living in a manufactured environment with a forced set of rules and no place to go. So you can imagine these rats were, victims of cabin fever, of, all kinds of disorders you would think of as humans, but the rats were experiencing them. And they were probably, at first happy when they realized that, but after time went by, they realized there was no new place to explore. The rules were set. They only had got to do in their life what was set up for them by an outside controller. And that controller didn't, even though maybe the best intentions of this controller, to keep you safe, to keep you happy, to keep you fed, if you really believe that that's, that benevolent controller that's running the human society, you might think, well, it should work, but evidently it doesn't. If you're trapped in with no place to go and no more ideas to have, and, there's no new discoveries, and not to mention, having to deal with a degrading population of animals that no longer act like what they are because they've been put into a new environment that's not their environment. That's not where they came from. That's not what they're designed to do. People are the rats in that study. We're now stuck in a society where they're going to tell you where you're going to go, how you're going to dress, who you're going to, how long will it be until the government starts telling you who you are allowed to date and have children with and things like that? Because the ideas that they're giving you now are not far off from that. Maybe those rats just needed a sticker and then they could have got to go play in a new park, a club just for rats with a little chip that showed that they were good little rats and that they behaved and they wore their masks and they took their vaccines and they never questioned anything. They just let the bank decide for them. We're that society. And think about this. The cabin fever aspect of those rats could be also applied to human beings, that we are now in a technological point in history where most of humanity knows that we're stuck on Earth. So now they're trying to give us ideas about aliens invading it. So maybe you'll be happy with your Earth and you'll be happy with their rules and you'll be happy to stay in as long as they protect you and you continue to give them your acquired wealth of humanity over to a few select individuals. Because that's obviously what's going on right now. But it's weird because I think humans are having the same thing. And what would you do as a controller every time people start getting cabin fever and they start realizing that they're locked in a prison? Once they start being able to see the bars and the edges of their reality, they're going to rebel. So the only thing you could do is reset everything and make everyone forget and learn it all again in a great reset. And you might want to time that right when you know there's a great cycle of upheaval in the environment, so that when people come through the other side of that, you'll be in complete control of it. And I think that's what's going on right there. We're the rats, and that's the secret of NIMH. And that's all I got for 420 TV. I hope you're having a wonderful day. I hope it's partly cloudy where you're at. And the time is forever 420 here. Anyway, you're listening to 177.6 on your freedom of speech dial, but don't take it for granted. As you know, they shut me up constantly. I will continue to try to make stuff and make shows and come on and say stuff and blab about the news that this stoner sees. So maybe I'm just a crazy stoner. Maybe I'm not. You make up your mind. Peace out and have a good day.
It's 11:59 at Radio Free America, and this is Uncle Sam with music and the truth until dawn. Right now, I got a few words for some of our brothers and sisters in the occupied zone. The chair is against the wall. The chair is against the wall. John has a long mustache. John has a long mustache. It's 12 o'clock, Americans, another day closer to victory. And for all of you out there on or behind the lines, this is your song.
about a thing, about a thing, a thing and don't worry, a thing and don't worry. Singing don't worry, singing don't worry, singing don't worry, singing don't worry about a thing, about a thing, about a thing.